Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Kent. I am Reverend Stephen, minister of this congregation. Thank you for joining us this morning as we gather virtually once again, a spiritual community that seeks to be diverse and inclusive as we inspire love, work for justice, and grow together in community. And once again, welcome.
Unitarian, Universalist, walking through the door just gives my heart a lift. People ask, what kind of church is this? Unitarian, Universalist. Who knows what? I can't walk or talk the list. A Unitarian, Universalist. I hold a never-ending question of the hardest beat insists. I'm a Unitarian Universalist. Even though what you say might not be what I know, we sit all together. Every Sunday we go, searching through our lives for the mystery of loving, sifting through the time like an old-fashioned coven. I know this is my church, eternal talking about. These are all my people, our voices singing and shout. Unitarian, Universalist, standing all together, we offer the world a gift, the all-important question of eternal compassion. See the morning star rising on the living tradition of Unitarian Universalism. Hey, Blaine, where have you been for a year and a half?
Surfing the tides.
Surfing the tides. Dude, Unitarian, Universalist, walking through the door just gives my heart a lift. People ask, what kind of church is this? Unitarian, Universalist.
When I began my spiritual journey some 11 years ago, I was trying to find a community in faith that I could believe wholeheartedly. A few years after losing my first husband, I started attending pagan rituals with a friend. While I enjoyed the outdoor aspect of pagan worship, I had to contend with the concept that there was not only one supreme being in the universe that determined our destinies, but a whole pantheon. That wasn't working for me, as I did not then and do not now believe in any supreme creator. Oddly enough, it was a pagan from that grove who suggested I might try Unitarian Universalism. There's a church in Kent, she told me. They seem like a really great group. Soon after, I Googled Unitarian Universalism and found the UUA website on which I learned about this faith and the 7 principles. Now, these were something that I could get behind. The first thing I noticed about the principles is their accessibility. Their wording is direct, brief, and easy for all congregants to understand. Unlike the creeds of my Catholic upbringing, they speak to living in this world, making this world a better place for everyone. It isn't always easy. There are days where I have to silently repeat to myself, respect the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And though I try to be a good steward of the planet, at least the little bit of it that I can control, I admit that sometimes I am wasteful. I know I could be doing more for racial and gender equity. However, the 7 principles are not meant to be a checklist of activities to complete. They are a moving target, always challenging me to stretch, listen, learn, and be the change. Come, let us worship together.
We join Unitarian Universalists across the country in lighting a chalice, a sign of life's beauty and wonder, a symbol of peace and hope, an invitation to continue our ongoing search for the light of truth within us and among us, and a reminder that we are all interconnected in the great web of existence, of which we are each a beloved part. As I light our shared chalice, I invite you to light your home chalice. Would you join me now in the words of our congregational covenant? We affirm that each life has brilliance and, when joined with others in joyful community, has the power to transform. We pledge ourselves and our resources to this journey. This covenant inspires and challenges us to dwell together in right relationship. We promise to extend hospitality, nurture community for all ages, encourage spiritual growth, honor diversity, and practice kindness. I invite us now into a time of stillness, to turn inward, to connect with the love that is the very heart of life itself, to reflect on the mysteries of life, and to remember our interconnectedness with each other and all of life as part of the web. Let's enter silence. Now, as we hold one another in compassion and care, I invite you to use the chat box to share with us sorrows and losses. We'll share joys in a little bit, and I'll be reading these out loud. Kat Holtz shares that her mother's cancer has returned, more tests to see how bad and what, if anything, can be done. Kat, we're holding you and your mother in our hearts and thoughts, praying for a good outcome. And Andrews sends condolences to Beth Wills on the loss of her father, Ray Fort Jr. May she know peace and comfort as she grieves. Max and Shana says, my Uncle Jimmy is suffering from Parkinson's and my Uncle Johnny high blood pressure along with other ailments, as in wheelchair bound with oxygen. May they both find comfort and peace. Emily Burnell Prutru says, still waiting to get vaccinated in Germany. May that happen soon, Emily. It's entered now into the spirit of prayer and reflection. We invoke the spirit of life and love, the mystery in which we find strength and common purpose as we turn our minds and hearts toward one another and hold in this circle and care and concern all who need our love and support, those we've named, those who are in our hearts and thoughts. We pray for all who are ill, who are in pain, either in body or spirit, those who struggle with addiction. May they find healing and wholeness. We pray for those who are lonely, for those who grieve, for the victims of any kind of abuse. May they find comfort, peace, and strength. As each of us faces life's challenges, losses, and struggles, may we find strength and hope in knowing that we are not alone, that we are held by love itself, a love that embraces and sustains us and will not let us go. May we also remember that we are connected in mystery and miracle to one another and to all of life. And may this knowledge guide us in the ways of compassion, kindness, and love. Now, once again, using the chat box, I invite you to share your joys. Claudia Miller shares gratitude for all the elements of the interconnected web of life of which we are all a part. That's our 7th principle, by the way. Cat Hole says, Happy Pride Month. I've seen so many people celebrating. Deborah Lynn Hook says, for the insights developed during COVID that moved me toward greater healing and wholeness, especially as I lean into the unfamiliar concept of rest. May you continue to know healing and wholeness, Deborah Lynn. Heidi and Randy share good news. Our cat Suka was found trapped in a neighbor's garage. We are so thankful for everyone, especially Jill Forsman and Bruce Richards, that helped search for her. I'm glad you found her and that she's home. Max and Shana shares gratitude to the love and support in the last week as Max dealt with funeral preparations and Friday's service for Mother. Thanks to all. Holding you in our hearts, Max. And now with gratitude for these and every blessing we receive in life, for the gift of life itself, for the companionship of each other on life's journey, for the hope and possibilities we find in our shared life, together we say, Amen. One of my colleagues says, we're a rainbow people. Together, what we give heals and transforms our world. This is our covenant, our bridge of heaven, our dream, and our reality. We know the rainbow begins with you. and with me. So what do you think of when you see a rainbow? I think of the Wizard of Oz, but I also think of the 7 principles. You know them by heart? There's a wonderful, easy way to remember them using the rainbow. Years ago, before I was a minister, I taught religious education to kindergartners and to 3rd graders. We learned the 7 principles by using the colors of the rainbow, and we call it the rainbow path. I want to share that path with you today. So the first color is red, which means respect all beings. Every being, including every person, has inherent worth and dignity. Our second color is orange. Offer fair and kind treatment to all. We work to practice justice, equity, and compassion in our relationships with everyone. Our third color is yellow. Yearn to learn. We accept one another and we encourage each other to keep learning and to grow spiritually. There's the fourth color, green, which means grow in mind and spirit. We keep searching for truth and meaning, and we do it with care and with responsibility. The fifth color is blue, which means believe in our ideas and act on them. Every person has the right to believe what they discover to be true. We also listen to every voice, which we call the democratic process. Everyone has a voice and a vote. Our sixth color is indigo, which means insist on peace, freedom, and justice. Our goal is a world community where there is peace, liberty, and justice for all people. Our seventh color is violet, which means value the connections in creation. We respect the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part. So the UUA is also working to add an eighth principle, work to end racism and injustice. We will become spiritually whole by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppression in ourselves and our institutions. Even though this background is white, I'm not sure that's the color we want. What color do you think the eighth principle should be? Use the chat box to share your ideas. Lee Brooker says all of them. Elaine says brown. Heidi agrees with Lee. Heidi and Randy says, I assume that's green. Becky Haynes says lavender. It's a good color. Oh, Heidi and Randy agree with Lee with the rainbow. Okay. Bertie says pink. Charlie says magenta. Claudia Miller says green like Kermit. Cheryl Spohr says transparent. Michael Darnell says aqua for the water in the rainbow. Becky Haynes says black and white. You know, in light, white is the presence of all colors. The Rome family says rainbow because the eighth principle reacts to all the other principles. Becky Haynes says a flesh color. All right, thank you for these. Oh, and there was one more. Someone suggested gold. So this morning we're reflecting on our seventh principles, and I wonder what our world would be like if we all practiced the 7 principles. So children and youth, as you explore the 7 principles in your religious education classes this summer, I hope you'll think about that. Now I invite Heidi to tell us more about the 7 principles.
Years ago, I came into this Unitarian Universalist community of faith. I'm home. I listen to people talk sometimes about liberal religion as if it's a thin gruel, watered down to please everyone. Our 7 principles, they complain, are either too much like a creed or so general as to be meaningless. My experience of the principles is that they are deeply demanding. The first one asks me to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, which means that I can no longer subscribe to that cheerful Calvinist doctrine of the total depravity of human nature. It sounds grim, but really, if you are in fact starting with a totally depraved nature, the opportunities for self-congratulation abound. Hey, I didn't knock over a 7-Eleven this morning, even though money's tight. I'm doing well. Now I have to struggle with the worth and dignity of people who do unspeakably awful things, whereas the doctrine of total depravity made that one made that one a no-brainer. I'm supposed to value the democratic process, hearing the voice of everyone equally, allowing everyone to have a say. The UU principles are demanding enough to make me whine. For those who feel they are thin gruel, I have a suggestion. Let's stick something onto the end of every principle that will stop people from smiling and nodding comfortably as they read. How about attaching beginning in our homes and congregations? Then we'd be faced with affirming things like the goal of peace, liberty, and justice for all, beginning in our homes and congregations. Everyone who has raised children knows that peace is often at odds with liberty and that justice demands a disturbance of the peace. If I start with my own heart, the demands of our principles get even heavier. Peace and compassion in my heart, justice too, freedom as well, affirming the worth of every person all the time, not only with my words and my behavior, but in my secret heart. I'm sorry I even brought it up. For me, the heart of the liberal faith is to be connected to something greater than yourself, to wallow in the spirit of life, love, and truth, to have fair trade coffee and important conversations, to stand for love and to stand against quibbling, complaining, and flouncing off in a huff, to move toward being in right relationship with ourselves, one another, and the planet. For me, this faith isn't a thin gruel. It's a rich feast prepared with effort, enjoyment, persistence, and commitment. Care to join me?
Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day. No room in this heart for fear. No judgment day drawing near. Trust that in her voice you hear every day. Life's not a goal or a race. It's about heart and faith and living a life of grace every day. Trust is an open hand, making an honest stand, rooted here in this land every day. Living the mystery, seeking the harmony here between you and me every day. Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day.
There is both genius and challenge in Unitarian Universalism. The genius is that there is room for everyone at our spiritual table. Atheists sit beside theists, humanists next to pagans, Buddhists alongside Christians. Side by side, in a covenantal relationship of mutual encouragement and accountability, each of us is invited to engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, as affirmed in our fourth principle. The challenge comes when we try to figure out if we have a shared set of beliefs. We don't have a creed, dogma, or doctrine. It certainly makes me wonder what would happen if our movement found itself in an evangelical mood and we went knocking on doors. If we didn't just stand there and smile and say nothing since we can't speak for all UUs, I suspect the 7 principles would be one of the things we talk about, or maybe not. Although the principles are a commonly accepted statement about Unitarian Universalism, you and I are not required to follow them. Congregations who join the UUA are asked to affirm the principles as part of our association's covenant. At the same time, the UUA bylaws state that a congregation may not use any statement of purpose, covenant, or bond of union as a covenantal creedal test, which is why the principles have been called the 7 suggestions. Yet many congregations elevate them to an almost creedal status, reciting them each Sunday or including them in the order of service. The principles are part of our governance system. Countless sermons and a number of books have been written about them. They continue to inspire heated debates, and as I shared during the Time for All Ages, there is even the Rainbow Path, a colorful version of the principles to teach in religious education. When our 2 predecessor denominations, the Universalist Church of America and the American Unitarian Association, joined forces in 1961, the process of consolidation included creating a statement that would express what this new association stood for and what message we have to offer the world. Out of this process came 6 principles, which are part of our bylaws. Major changes came to the principles in the early 1980s as feminism found its voice in the UUA. Women took the lead in pushing to revise the principles to make them more inclusive, arguing that the use of mankind doesn't recognize women as human beings. The revision process was completed in 1985. It was during those revisions that the principles grew from 6 to 7, and the 5 sources of spiritual wisdom were added to preserve the religious heritage of both the Unitarians and the Universalists, and to acknowledge the diverse theologies that inform our religious pluralism. The 6th source, recognizing earth-centered traditions as a source of spiritual wisdom, was added in 1995. The bylaws were also revised to include a provision for reviewing the principles every 15 years, both to prevent the danger of them becoming creedal, as well as to respond to our understanding that truth continues to be revealed, that revelation is not sealed. There is also a movement in the UUA to adopt an 8th principle, which calls us to work to dismantle racism and white supremacy as part of our journey toward beloved community. The plan is for the 8th principle to be on the UUA General Assembly agenda in 2022, next year. Like everything else in our association, the principles are controversial. While many applaud them as a coherent and inclusive statement of beliefs commonly held by UUs, others criticize the principles as yet another failed attempt to capture the central truth of our tradition, describing the principles as nothing more than a generalized, vague, ethical to-do list. Jean Pickett, who was a former president of the UUA, said about the principles, "Our purposes and principles describe a process for approaching religious depth, but testify to no intimate acquaintance with the depths themselves." In other words, our principles are not a religious narrative, nor are they a source of hope as we face life's losses, challenges, and suffering. As former UUA President Bill Singford asked so aptly, would you want to hear the 7 principles read to you on your deathbed? Meg Barnhouse, on the other hand, in the reading, thinks the principles are very demanding, as she said, affirming the worth of every person all the time, not only with my words and my behavior, but in my heart. The UU principles are demanding enough to make me whine. UU Minister Lex Crane writes that it's worth pointing out that the principles embrace the entire range of human experience, the individual person, relations between societies and a world community of nations, and relations of both and all within the interdependent web of all of existence. So here are our 7 principles in a wheel form created by Reverend Ian Riddell. So the question is this: are the 7 principles precepts worthy of the struggle it takes to live them out in the world? Or are they trite, lovely, but irrelevant platitudes that sound nice but have no meaning in our spiritual lives? Well, as with most of Unitarian Universalism, the answer depends on whom you ask. And in the spirit of religious freedom, it's up to each of us to decide what we think about them. But to leave this exploration of the principles with a "you figure it out for yourself and whatever you come up with is wonderful" answer misses the point. As Meg Barnhouse suggests, the challenge of the principles, as with any spiritual path, is translating ideas into reality. Without seriously considering how the principles shape our lives on a daily basis, they remain platitudes, pretty, pious, but ultimately meaningless words. So what if the language of the principles was more active? There's a blogger who writes, "I need the words of the principles to be tangible, action-oriented, alive. Using the founding documents of our country as inspiration, I offer this personalized version of the principles. We, the people of the Unitarian Universalist faith, join together to affirm our beliefs and the principles that guide us in our faith. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that every person of any faith, creed, culture, society, age, gender, color, sexual orientation is inherently worthy and must be treated with dignity. That every person, regardless of perceived differences, therefore must be treated justly, with equity, and with compassion at all times. As a person of faith, we promise each other the freedom to search for our individual truths and beliefs, to support each other as we explore and discover our own understanding of life and faith. We promise to uphold every congregant's right of conscience, to use and uphold the democratic process within our congregations and society at large." And the blogger concludes by saying, "To constantly strive to make real our dream, a world community at peace with liberty and justice for all. To acknowledge, respect, and honor the interdependent web of all existence of which we are each a part. To these principles and truths, we commit ourselves." Now they sound more like precepts, an inclusive, action-inspiring expression of our longing to be who we are called to be as individuals and association. As precepts, the principles offer the promise of a faith that is worth going door to door for, a faith that Meg Barnhouse sums up this way: "For me, the heart of the liberal faith is to be connected to something greater than yourself, to wallow in the spirit of life, love, and truth, to have fair trade coffee and important conversations, to stand for love and to stand against quibbling, complaining, and flouncing off in a huff, to move toward being in right relationship with ourselves, one another, and the planet." And she concludes by saying, "For me, this faith isn't a thin gruel. It's a rich feast, prepared with effort, enjoyment, persistence, and commitment." Care to join me? This summer, our worship services will explore the principles. A variety of voices will share their personal understanding of the principles and how they inform our shared life as UUs. As you learn about the principles, I invite you to think about how they, including the proposed 8th principle, make ours a rich faith, a spiritual feast that invites us to focus on this life and to offer our hearts, our minds, our energy, and our hands to recreate the world as we would have it be. A world in which war, genocide, and racism have given way to the celebration of diversity. A world where creation is not plundered and destroyed by greed, but respected, nurtured toward wholeness, and used wisely in the knowledge that everything is truly interconnected. A world in which the beloved community, where people are free to be their fullest, most authentic selves and can live free from fear and oppression and share in the abundance of the earth. This is our dream. This is our dream to create together, and may we make it so together. Take a couple of moments of silence to reflect. We will be together again soon. But until then, we continue to be strong and thrive as a community and are together virtually for worship, for community, for shared ministry because of the gifts of time, money, and care each of you so generously give. Thank you. To help others in our community thrive, we also give to agencies and organizations in Kent and beyond that serve those in need. June's special offering is for Love Light. Love Light is a social service agency in Kent formed in 1995 to assist individuals and families, especially those who are lower income or otherwise disadvantaged, to move toward realizing their potential. One of the services Love Light provides is a summer program that includes games, art, learning opportunities, and lunch for more than 100 children and youth. In the spirit of gratitude for the gift of one another and this community and the abundance that makes our generosity possible, we now give and receive the offering as a sign of our shared commitment to the life and work of this congregation and beyond. These words by the Reverend Scott Alexander. In a world with so much hatred and violence, we need a religion that proclaims the inherent worth and dignity of every person. In a world with so much brutality and fear, we need a religion that seeks justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. In a world with so many persons abused and neglected, we need a religion that calls us to accept one another and encourage each other to grow spiritually. In a world with so much tyranny and oppression, we need a religion that affirms the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. In a world with so much inequity and strife, we need a religion that strives toward the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And in a world with so much environmental degradation, we need a religion that advocates respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And in a world with so much uncertainty and despair, we need a religion that teaches our hearts to hope and our hands to care. And now, inspired to live lives of goodness and love, guided by our 7 principles and the promise our faith holds for the future, let us go out in the world in joy and hope as we continue to inspire love, seek justice, and grow in community. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. And I see the light in you.